You are listening to the Practicing People's Podcast. I'm CJ Hammond.
And I'm Jordan White. Together, we'll be taking a journey into the practices that help us align with our mind, body, and soul.
So take a deep breath, release, and remain curious as we explore new ways to enhance our lives.
Welcome, listeners. Today on the show, we have Abby Payne, a seasoned registered nurse, creative writer, and board-certified coach. With a background spanning 8 years in traditional nursing, including intense work as an ICU nurse during the pandemic, Abby reached a point of exhaustion and burnout. It was during this challenging period that Abby embarked on her own self-care journey and had a profound realization of her own lack of self-love and need for healing. So in her own healing process, Abby enrolled in a coaching program and realized her true calling was to guide people in healing from within. She now works with people both individually and in groups to break free from people-pleasing, detox from digital services, and build capacity and self-care skills for life's stressors. Abby, we're so happy to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you both.
Very excited for this conversation. Jordan's beautiful introduction to kind of who you are, just a little bit of it. One thing that sticks out to me is that you are a healer, both of the physical and the, let's say, spiritual, mental side. And one of the things that struck me from our initial conversation, the kind of the pre-interview, was um, the true genuine empathy you have for others, but there was something you spoke about that kind of led you to this career that you're into now with nursing as well, but that was that compassion fatigue as a nurse. And I'm curious if you could explain to me exactly what that looks like or what that's felt like for you in your transition.
Yes, compassion fatigue. I could definitely talk about that. So like you said in my introduction, I've been a nurse for 8 years. You go into nursing, every nurse I know goes in wanting to help people, wanting to help heal the world one person at a time. We want to take care of the sick. We want to take care of people in their worst moments. And when you get into it, you realize that it's an industry and it's there to make a profit. And there's definitely a push as the years have gone by that I've even been in nursing, where nurses have more patients, sicker patients, more tasks. We've absorbed tasks from other departments, and you get so busy that you barely have time to even take yourself to the bathroom, let alone drink water, let alone take breaks, lunch breaks. And then if you have a patient who's really struggling emotionally or they're wanting to connect, it almost frustrates you because you don't have the time. And I found myself starting to get frustrated at people who wanted to connect or people who were having a hard time with their diagnosis emotionally, mentally. I started to lose all of that compassion because the workload was so intense. And so that's kind of my experience with compassion fatigue is where I stopped recognizing myself. I was like, I went into this with so much heart, and now I feel like all of that is gone, and I'm just going through the motions, checking off the boxes, passing meds, getting people to the bathroom, maybe, definitely not brushing anybody's hair, not cleaning their glasses, not doing those little things that help people feel seen. You don't have time. And so you start to feel like a shell of a human being. You start to feel like your soul and your heart is left outside of your career.
Jay, if I could extrapolate from that, we're kind of going deep fast here today, but this is why I'm so excited to have a conversation with you. I hope the listeners can go back and listen to everything that you just said, because the gravity of being a nurse and taking care of others is one that is weightier than of just the normal everyday ebbs and flows. But so much of what you talked about resonated with just the human experience of this day and age, where that compassion fatigue, especially during like an election cycle, people are going through motions, and I just find it that not only in nursing, but that same type of sphere, you started talking about going through the motions. That was just a that's a crazy thing to think about. It's nursing, but on the bigger picture, it is the human experience for a lot of people these days.
Yes. Yes, it is, and I don't know if that's people talk a lot about capitalism and things like that, but just removing the humanity from business, from healthcare, from teaching, removing that human element of connection and, heart, soul, and you start to feel out of alignment. And that's now that I have that kind of language as a coach, I recognize that's what was happening is my body was at work, my hands were at work, my mind was at work, my soul wasn't there. My soul had left. My soul said, "Nuh-uh, no way, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm going to go somewhere else." And where did it go? I didn't know. And that was the journey that I had to take outside of nursing is where did my soul go? Where did my spirit go? Where am I going to find it again? And it's still helping people, but it's helping them in a way that feels completely aligned, mind, body, spirit.
Yeah, so well said, so well said. And I mean, to build on top of that, Abby, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about that journey, about the kind of soul-seeking journey that you mentioned, and how was that for you? And yeah, what came up? What did that lead to?
Man, I'm so still in it.
Mhm.
I'm so still in it. And I've learned so much. So to take it back, I was a nurse, bedside nurse, and I worked on a basic adult unit. So we call that med surge, medical surgical, people recovering from surgery and medical illness. So I had 6 patients at a time. And I started to get really burnt out where that's just a crazy workload. And it's where a lot of nurses start. And then they quickly move out of that because it's just such an intense workload. So then I started thinking maybe I want to do intensive care because that's 1 or 2 patients, right? It's like they're sicker, but it's 1 or 2 patients. Maybe I could connect with their family more. Like I'm kind of ready for a change of pace. And so I did that. I submitted an application to be part of a cardiac surgical ICU at a level 1 trauma center, which means that we get the sickest patients. We received flight for life patients from the mountains, accident patients, all of that. And I got accepted and I was so excited. And that was in February of 2020. And then I started in March and very quickly became a pandemic nurse. And that 1 to 2 patient ratio is thrown out the window. That was not a thing at that time. You're having 3 or 4 patients who are critically ill. And I was new as well. I was a new ICU nurse, but I wasn't a new nurse. So there were true new nurses who had just graduated school who were working the ICU. And so I found myself taking the sicker patients than I should have to spare them from having to take the sicker patients because they were truly new out of school. And that just led to an insane level of burnout. Yeah, I started having nightmares, not able to sleep. I was also working night shift, so 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and wasn't eating. I started having flashbacks, panic attacks. I would be standing there at work getting ready to receive my assignment for the day, and my whole body was trembling, tunnel vision, and there was a sense that you can't leave. We're in a pandemic, and that sense of feeling trapped when it comes to your nervous system, anytime you feel trapped, that you're not allowed to escape a situation, it can exacerbate PTSD even more. And I definitely felt trapped. And my mental health was so bad. I found myself drinking more often after shifts. All of us nurses in the pandemic were drinking a lot after work, which is at 7 in the morning. If you're a night shift nurse, so you're going to the bar after work with all your friends and drinking at 7, 8 a.m., going home and sleeping, and then going back to work the next night. Just terrible self-care. I had no idea how to take care of myself. And um, so eventually I got connected with a therapist that was provided from work. They give you like 6 sessions a year for free. And she said I was at a critical level of burnout, that it is okay if I needed to leave. She did this whole assessment with me and she said, "You are at a critical level of burnout. And if you need to find another job that's less stressful, I would recommend that. And it's okay." And she gave me permission to leave the ICU during a pandemic 6 months in. I had 6 months under my belt as an ICU nurse and I left. And that sparked my own self care journey because then I got a job, the easiest job I could find, pre procedure, checking in people for orthopedic surgery, starting IVs, making sure papers are signed. But I still struggled with flashbacks, poor sleep, drinking, nightmares. I was still having all these mental health challenges. And my doctor at the time wanted to put me on anxiety medications and things like that, but I wanted to explore holistic modalities first. And that is what sparked my own self-care journey, is meditation, grounding exercises, breath work, plant medicine, CBD. I got on some CBD that really helped my anxiety. And I started to realize there's this whole world of holistic, preventative stress management health that I wasn't taught as a nurse. And if I'm not taught it as a nurse, the public is definitely not taught this. And that began me looking at coaching certifications. So that, to take a pause there, that was kind of my journey from nursing until I pursued a coaching certification.
Was there a moment, like I don't want to call it the aha or the awakening, I guess, but you kind of know, where not even the after, that's like the part that led you to the therapy, because you had mentioned that she gave you permission, right? And it's semantics, but I'm thinking in my head, but you're the one sitting here talking now. There's someone in there that had to give, inside of you, that had to give you permission. So I'm curious, that voice that also led you to therapy, w- what was that moment that you were like, I have to talk to her or somebody?
Mm-mm. Yeah, I think it was a culmination of moments. Um, there were people that I knew, nurses, that took their own life during the pandemic. There were thoughts that I had in that regard during the pandemic. Again, that sense of feeling trapped, like I have no way out. I can't leave this situation. And then you start thinking of ways that you can. And I think when that started to happen, I was like, I need to talk to someone because I have an amazing husband. I live right by the mountains, like walking distance to trails. Didn't want to go hiking, didn't want to do anything. And I have tasted what it is to thrive earlier in my life when I was in nursing school. And I think having tasted what it was like to thrive, then when I wasn't, I knew I could get back there. I guess having that experience. Yeah, but that's a really good question to reflect back on. A good bit of it is a little bit of a blur,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how that all happened.
Well, a very traumatic experience might kind of, bring that to that, that blockage of how exactly this all got there. It's a
Hmm.
incredible little journey you've had so far. Like you said, we're all still in the healing process, but a journey so far.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and it's interesting you brought up, trails, and CJ and I often talk about how life is essentially kind of this never-ending hike, right? Where it kind of there's difficult parts of the trail. There's also parts where the view is incredible and breathtaking, but it never really stops, right? It's like, okay, well, on to the next thing. So that leads me to kind of your coaching practice, right? And you kind of went through this journey, and before we dive into that, I'm wondering, because I'm guessing, Abby, that whoever's listening to this has experienced some type of burnout, but you use the term critical burnout. And I'm just wondering, can you say a little more about what that is? That's the first time I've actually heard that. And if someone may be inspired to go talk with a therapist or potentially, a coach based on kind of your experience, could you just say a little more about what that term is and means?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's a technical term. I do know that the therapist I saw, she had me fill out an actual form for burnout, where she scored me and said, "You are at the highest level of burnout, panic attacks, not sleeping, tunnel vision, all of these sort of things, alcohol use per week, high, things like that." And when she looked at the total picture, she's at first, session one, she's like, let's work on some techniques. She showed me how to do some breathing exercises. Wasn't working. And at one point, she said, "You are having a normal response to an abnormal situation. Your body, your nervous system is reacting normally to an abnormal situation, which is a global pandemic, as a brand new ICU nurse. So all the feelings you're feeling," she very much validated that. And then at our sixth and final session, I was still scoring really high. And she validated me again that there's nothing wrong with you. It's not that you're not doing something. It's that this is a really difficult time to be in healthcare, let alone a new ICU nurse, let alone 24 years old. So if you need to leave, you can leave. And so I think that criticalness was some kind of scoring tool that she used that therapists are trained in using.
Great. Yeah, thanks for saying more about that. It's you know, something happens when things get normalized for us, right? And I'd imagine you create that space for your clients now as a coach, right? So, um, and again, like when things are maybe understood a bit more, whether it be a concept or a theory or a method, it really helps us, to repeat what you're saying, like kind of give permission, right? And one final thing I'll say about that is that I have some curiosity around is you keep mentioning that she gave or the therapist gave you permission. I'm wondering about the permission you gave yourself.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting what you say about culture because the culture at the time was if anybody did leave, everybody talks bad about her. Now we're even more short-staffed. Everybody keeps leaving, and a lot of people were leaving to go travel nurse in New York and make tons of money. So places like Colorado, Wyoming, these more Midwest didn't have as much capital to hire as many travel nurses, so a lot of people were leaving to go get more money elsewhere. And then the rest of us who were left kind of would grumble, and so there was almost that social pressure of like, if you leave, you're making it worse for your coworkers. You're making it worse for these brand new nurses. And there was that pressure, sort of that mother spirit of I don't want to make it worse for my friends, my actual friends. And her giving me that permission that it's okay to put myself and my own needs above before, like, you have to put the oxygen on yourself first. And that's a concept, but I think I needed someone else to say, you're allowed to leave, for me to feel like I was allowed to leave. I wanted to mention another term that might be helpful for your audience, and it's called moral injury. Is it okay if I talk about moral injury? So, moral injury, what happens when you have a certain level of morality, and due to circumstances or your job or the culture of your job, you are asked to perform at a lower level of morality. And that causes an injury to your moral compass. And that's kind of part of compassion fatigue. It's a little bit of a different lens. But moral injury happens when you want to take your patient, give them a shower, comb their hair, braid it, wash their glasses off, and give that level of care, and you cannot. You can't because it will compromise the care of another patient. If you show this one that level of care, then this one might not even get their meds on time. So you're forced to compromise your own morals. And that happens in healthcare, but it happens in business, happens in all kinds of industries where you're like, I want to come with this high level of moral compass, and I'm not allowed to, or by me doing that, I'm actually making someone else at risk. And that is very damaging to your spirit and your soul, and just it sucks the life out of you.
You had mentioned it earlier, and I didn't want to quite take it there because I'll get going. But the capitalism part, capitalism really has a way to strip the authenticity of the relational experience in interactions in any type of business setting. It is very hard to form some sort of relational, especially I think about what you're talking about, what it is that you're doing. You're taking care of somebody. You're bringing healing to somebody, but yet that is it's sort of a checkbox of certain things. Love and intention doesn't really work in a checkbox form. There's something that's given to, and that less than humane experience is no wonder why I see in a place where this should be shown more than any other place, we're missing the mark. And so societally, like I look out and see what's going on in this world, it very is a microcosm of all this. You see very much what you're talking about it, the business level, the relational level of family, friends, again, business interactions of small mom and pops, all working the same just to get by versus to get with others and form relational bonds of community and things like that. Because you said the pressure you felt from your coworkers was half the reason probably why you didn't want to do that. Step out for what was actually good for you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so hard to be in that position and not have support, not have a therapist, a coach, a listening ear, someone who gets it. And I think that's part of also what I love about coaching is I get to listen to people. Like how many people don't even have someone in their life to give them curiosity, to really listen, to ask questions, and to really hold space for where they're at. So many people don't have that at all. And to be able to provide that to someone and see that healing happen from within is like why I was put on this earth. Yeah, just fills me up. I never knew I could love my career like this. I just thought everybody was doomed to hate their jobs. And I'm like, I love what I do. I say it every day. Like, I love what I do. Even the hard times, even the techie stuff that's hard when stuff, the behind the scenes admin, I still love what it allows me to do. It's just an incredible process.
Yeah, that human connection outweighs, the checking of the boxes that CJ kind of mentioned there, right? So
Yeah.
tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about your coaching. I mean, what is it that you primarily help people with through that? And it's cool to just watch you talk about it. By the way, you are like literally glowing.
Thanks. Yeah, I love
But
it.
yeah,
I was
tell
gonna
us,
say
I can't
she's
believe this is
she's
my
look
life.
you can hear it and see it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can't believe this is my life. Like every day, I just am like, oh, I just like buzz. It just, my
Yeah,
spirit's back, right? I found it. I'm like, there you are. Found you. Yeah, so I decided to pursue a coaching certification, and a big part of it was I was still struggling with my mental well-being. I'd learned some tools, but I was like, if I can take this coaching certification, maybe it'll fix me. Maybe because I'm a learner, I'm a lifelong learner. I love taking courses and classes and a lot of us nurses, we get all kinds of certifications, and work was going to pay for it, tuition reimbursement. So I was like, what do I have to lose? I think if I learn how to coach other people, maybe I'll learn how to coach myself. And that definitely happened where I was in the program and I started noticing a lot of people pleasing in myself. I had a hard time saying maybe what needed to be said or asking a question that I could feel in my spirit needed to be asked. Maybe it was like a spicier question, maybe it was a more direct question. And I couldn't. I felt like a complete block in my throat of being able to speak the truth and holding back, holding back. And I knew it wasn't in service to myself or my clients to hold back, but I didn't know how to overcome that. And that led me down my own journey of researching people pleasing and what are these blocks about and caring so much what other people think about me, including my clients at the time, my practice clients, caring so much that they thought I was a good coach, that they thought I was, doing a good job, that it actually was holding me back from holding that powerful space to ask people like hard questions like what what if you stopped drinking? What would that look like? Or what is alcohol doing for you in your life? And being able to really lean in to things people were bringing, I found myself having a block. So I did a deep dive. I read all the books about people pleasing, codependency, and how we lean on external validation for our self worth versus getting it internally or from your higher power. And I started to work that in myself and in my coaching practice, and started a program called Break the People Pleasing Pattern, which is an 8-week program I walk people through on where does people pleasing come from? What are the roots? Definitely goes back to childhood for a lot of us. And then how do we break out of this cycle? How do we create internal safety, self acceptance, self love, to where we're not needing that from other people, to where we can feel that wholeness, that even if this other person thinks, wow, that was too far, she took that too far, that I'm enough detached from what they think about me to maybe even piss my client off from time to time. And I've had clients where they're like, they leave the session a little ruffled, and they'll come back and say, I've needed someone to ask that question for years. I've needed someone to go there, and you went there and it ruffled me, but then I sat with it and like, you're right. Or I do need to talk about that. And it allowed me to show up more powerfully. So that is a big part of what I do with people is I work around authenticity, vulnerability, standing in your truth, and deep self-acceptance and love to be able to show up in that way.
Can I ask you a question? Because I think I'll be 8 weeks from now. I'll be a better person. I'm gonna have to take your course. There's one big component that you're talking about that I'm quite interested in your thoughts on, and that's the truth. The truth will set you free. The truth is the hardest pill to swallow. And I myself am a people pleaser. I'm not sure if it comes from the industry I'm in or what it else, because again, I'm trying to fit what you need versus the most powerful actor I can be is being who I am and seeing that I might want to be attached to this. Um, what ways do you find, or do you help take clients through that piece of the truth? That's the one that's talking to me the most right now, is that your self truth. And it's crazy because it gets convoluted to think that you can say whatever you want to anybody, and like let that be that. I think there's a nuance to it perhaps, and I'm not sure, but the truth is not a vindictive, vengeful thing. It's a free loving thing that you're talking about. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that what you're touching on is core values when it comes to people pleasing. And so that if we have a core value of doing things for other people, supporting other people, then that can feel conflicted when saying the truth might cause discomfort in someone else. And there's a confliction there where we value truth and we value doing no harm. And so it feels like, how do I reconcile those? And I have a saying that the opposite of people pleasing isn't being an asshole, and it's not being a self-serving jerk. It's authenticity. It's speaking your truth, and that there's such a big difference there, because swinging to the other side of the pendulum where you just say whatever, you don't care how it lands, that's not in alignment with your core values. So living from your core values of truth, honesty, authenticity, and prefacing it with vulnerability of like, hey, I'm going to say something I'm a little nervous to say it because it might ruffle your feathers a little bit, but I feel like it's a question I need to ask you. Is that okay? Asking permission. And then if usually people are like, well, yeah, because then they're curious. They're like, what's she going to say? And then you say the thing, I'm noticing this. Like, how does that feel? And prefacing it with your own, like, I'm nervous to even ask you this. I think that vulnerability lets people in and builds trust. But I think what you're talking about there is like the core values thing.
Yeah, yeah. And you like you said, it ruffles feathers. A personal anecdote here. My girl, I had taken a liking to too much THC at one point, and it was just the fact of it was sort of routine. It was like, going to go about the day, do this. I remember her making mention of this, and it made me so angry because it was like I could tell, because I went on defense immediately, both internally. I could feel the lockup immediately, and then it came outwardly in my response. And her mirroring me and showing me the mirror to myself was a little bit too much for my ego to take at that time. I think a loving CJ understands where that question comes from, but the ego came right up in me, and it's our shell. It's sort of there to protect us, but it's gonna cause more damage than good ultimately.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that, I share that where I was, especially during the pandemic, I was definitely taking a liking to THC and numbing discomfort in my nervous system. And that has been another little side quest I had to take. I had to take the people pleasing side quest, and then I had to take the numbing and nervous system regulation side quest, which is my other part that I help people in through my business, is sitting in the discomfort, not numbing it. And in my work, I use nervous system regulation, which is like there's a term polyvagal theory, which this might get a little bit sciencey for a second, but it's really you've maybe heard of fight or flight, right? Our survival reactions. So at the bottom we have, our green zone, which is where we feel calm, connected, compassionate, we're not reactive, and then we experience a trigger or a perceived threat. That could be you see a black bear on the trail, or it could be you get a email from your boss saying, I need to see you in my office. Your nervous system doesn't know which is real. It's going to react the same. You have a perceived threat because it affects your sense of safety. What if I lose my job? Then what's going to happen? Then I'm not going to have money. Then I'm going to lose the house. So you've attached your sense of safety to your job, which is normal. So you have this perceived threat and it kicks in your fight or flight response. Your heart is racing, you're getting sweaty, you're getting nervous, you're breathing fast. And if we can't tolerate those feelings or bring ourselves down, we will hit a level of overwhelm and then we go into freeze mode. And this is a survival mechanism of our nervous system. Even animals in the wild, if they are in fight or flight for too long, you literally use up all of your stress hormones. You don't have enough stress hormones. You've dumped them all into your bloodstream and you hit overwhelm and then you just freeze. You numb. You want to go get ripped, get high. You want to just watch a ton of TV, scroll. You just want to disappear. You hit a point where you say, I can't. And you numb. So part of my work with people in nervous system regulation and with people pleasers is how do we tolerate feelings of discomfort? We were probably never taught how to do that by our caregivers, how to have emotional regulation. So then if we can learn those skills through deep breathing exercises, meditation, there's this concept called vagal tone, which is where the more relaxed you are daily, the more easily your body can go out of fight or flight and into parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. If we can tone and soothe that nerve, that response, and practice it every day through meditation, breath work, grounding, healthy diet, good sleep, then our bodies will be more easily able to come out of fight or flight and into rest and not get so overwhelmed. Does that make sense?
Go science all day.
No,
I love science.
I'm gonna say everyone is welcome for the breakdown there. Yeah, no, that was beautiful,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering, Abby, if you could say a bit more about the relaxation part that you kind of finished up with there, because how many people are out there justifying their relaxation by drinking or by smoking or by escaping? That's in their mind, they're relaxing, but
Oh, that was
really,
me.
right? But in reality, right, what I hear you saying is, we've got to get to a point where you can actually sit with it. And they talk about in positive intelligence, either accept or convert. So this idea
Mhm.
of acceptance of this is a challenging point I'm at in my life is a huge gateway to starting to
Mhm.
move into more healing, natural healing. So I'm just wondering, yeah, what you would
Natural.
say to, well, I am relaxing. That's why I go to happy hour every day. That's why I go and, you know, to the
Yeah.
the dispensary once a week or whatever it may be. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, I had a realization while I was working with people, coaching, where I was like, is all of my self-care just numbing? This is right around when I was learning about nervous system, polyvagal theory, and I'm starting to look at this stuff and I'm like, I get high, go for a bike ride, listen to music. I do things that every time I'm doing self-care, I'm actually just like trying to disappear, or I'm seeking a sense of oblivion, a sense of non-being where I check out, whether that's watching TV, scrolling, even some of my exercise habits. It was like, I don't want to deal with something, so I'm just going to go. I'm not going to go to process it. I'm not going to go on a bike ride to think through. I don't want to be here. It was almost a flight response. And so I had to look at, how do I know in my own spirit when I'm numbing and when I'm self-caring? And I think there's a nuance to that of, am I running from something or seeking a sense of non-being? Or am I needing a little bit of space? And I'm going to come back to, you know, I can feel a difference in my nervous system when I'm like, okay, I'm a little stressed out. I'm going to go for a bike ride. I'm going to come back and I'm going to readdress this problem versus I'm going to send the email and close my laptop for a week and just hope that nobody ever responds. Or, where we like do things and we run. But I think with awareness comes choices. So just teaching people how their nervous system works so that they can sort of tell, oh, I felt what happened there. I was so stressed. I hit overwhelm and I felt myself go into freeze mode. I felt that happen. And that awareness, you can start to feel what works and what doesn't. Because being in freeze zone isn't parasympathetic, it's not true rest. You're still activated underneath. This is when people wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about work. Even in your sleep, your nervous system is in fight or flight. You can be in fight or flight even in sleep. So it's bringing that down to true groundedness, calm, sense of inner peace, meditation, breath work, where that true sense of well-being is. And some people, they've not really experienced that. They've lived in fight or flight or freeze for a long time.
That Me and Jordan talked about a concept that you're sort of coming to right now with that awareness, and I have to ask myself. I've come across this question. I read or listened to some Marianne Williamson, and it came to the point of how willing I was to do certain things. I had to ask myself, "Am I willing to do this? Am I willing to do that?" Is that oftentimes what you find when you're going through the process of showing the mirror to people, seeing their unwillingness to do things quite often, that like you can show them it but they're just not willing to accept the fact, I guess? Is that most what you come into, or is there something else that you see as a common trait?
Hmm. I think maybe what I see as a common trait is a lack of safety. So our nervous system needs safety. And that whole fight or flight thing is unsafe. It's a fear response. And this can happen in relationships. This can happen at work. This can happen at any places in your life where there's not that sense of safety. And so a lot of what I do with people is creating inner trust and inner safety and self-acceptance that even if you go there, even if you feel all those really hard emotions and you face your shadow side, that you're still loved and accepted in here, inside, and creating that sense of internal safety. And sometimes this can even be done by like thinking of someone or something that you love, like your cat. Thinking of your cat in your arms, looking up at you in the morning and just cuddling and purring. And that creates like a sense of safety because our nervous system finds regulation in other nervous systems. We're tribal. And so even leaning on other nervous systems like animals, spouses, partners, a sister, a brother, a best friend. And in times of stress, when you're feeling really overwhelmed, bringing that to mind, the people who love you, the people who support you, the people who have your back, your cat, that can create a sense of safety for you. And you begin to lean on that in your body when you're feeling stressed. And I think just helping people to create those neural connections of find your happy place, basically. What's your happy place? Practice going there every day. Practice going there. And the more you practice it, the more quickly you can tap into it, even when you're feeling nervous, even when you're giving a big talk on stage and you're feeling nervous. Think about all the people who don't care how you do on this talk. They love you no matter what. You're accepted, you're safe, you're good. And yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question, but that seems to be a lot of the work I end up doing is love, acceptance, safety brings healing.
Amen.
Yeah. But as you were talking about it, and at the end there, you talked about your happy place. I was starting to think about Happy Gilmore, and it's literally an example of
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about, though. And on, to nerd out with you, Abby. I mean, as far as what we're doing there is consciously helping our subconscious mind catch up with us, right? Of like where we want to be,
Yes.
right? So that's the power of the mind. And when I mean that's my theory. When people who study like the neuroplasticity and go down that route, they say we barely use up the as powerful as our minds are. That's my theory of what they're talking about is we can use
Yeah.
our mind if we are consciously, if we take a second, 5 minutes, even what you're implying there, to just consciously think about where we want to be and who we want to be and what brings us
Mm-hmm.
love and light and joy. That is us starting to maximize more of our mind in a powerful way. And the mind, right? The body follows what the mind is creating. So it's
Yes.
this incredible process that you're talking about. So I mean beautifully. So I just want to acknowledge you for one, giving us a lecture, and more
Ha.
so in a beautiful way, right? To help, I really hope people are inspired by how you're talking about this because this is the power
Yeah.
of what coaching can do as well. Like a question in a loving space that you've created. I mean, so much can happen and unfold there and become possible.
Mm-hmm.
I love how you said that about the conscious and the subconscious, because so much of our nervous system is subconscious programming. And so just exploring that, being willing to explore those connections with an empathetic witness, which could be a coach, a therapist, someone who's empathetic to help hold the space for you to go there. Yeah, I think that's a lot of our work. The mind body connection is wild. It goes both ways. The mind can tell the body to calm down, and also the body can tell the mind, hey, we're all good. I'm taking deep breaths. There's no threat here. And the mind can catch up. There's this amazing mind body connection that we're just starting to understand. And yeah, I'm really passionate about educating people. That's a big role of nurses. We're health educators. So I love incorporating, I want people to feel empowered to understand their nervous system, understand the science in a way that's easy to understand. And then from there, once we have that base knowledge, which is what I do in my programs, Break the People Pleasing Pattern and Digital Detox, where we get off our phones and learn about nervous system regulation. Once we have that foundation, then we can go places because you understand your reactions, your triggers, your threats, what's going on in your body when your spouse, your partner says something that triggers you. Oh, I perceive that as a threat. Why? What does that threaten? What part of me does that threaten? So it just builds.
Yeah. Yeah. And like remaining compassionately curious about the self, right? In that process. That's really the art form of it. I mean, CJ and I can talk a lot about A game and B game thinking, and it's essentially what you're capturing there is, the flight or fight response or the amygdala hijack response or the autopilot response is more so where the B game lives, and that's up to 95% of our thinking, right? And that's the brain just doing what it's wired to do is to automate as much as possible so it can give you energy to go do other things. But I mean, what's the cost of that, right? And starting to explore that with curiosity is what I hear you saying there too. So
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, exactly.
um, Over to you, CJ. Sorry, man. We had
No,
to.
no, no. I believe me. I'm just sitting here thinking too, and I think so much of that is, when we talk about the most simplistic ways to look at it, we're looking at the A game, B game, love or fear, and then if we choose the fearful thought, we then do this guilt, fear, shame thing that takes us even longer to get back on track to the other side because we're so upset that our mind, like you said, Jordan, does something that it's doing to just keep us safe. I'm just trying to keep you safe, but then you double down on that thing and make it feel worse, as opposed to release, understood. Let's get back to a neutral level. Let's find the breath, and we're good. But we again, and that's why we get so far away from the truth and the self acceptance, the self belonging, because we're just bashing our mind for what it's trying to do for the good purpose. And really, we just need to accept that it, like, hey, cool. Let me just find my breath here. All right, I appreciate you. Okay, with what you've told me and with what I'm gathering from a deep source of self in me, I'm coming to an answer. That's a cool way to look at it. I'm curious now, and you and Jordan got me thinking. So Abby's going on this life's journey. She's got her backpack here, and it's a limitless backpack. But what are one, two, three, four things that you're packing that we'll call your practices for the sake of this podcast? But what are things that you're taking with you on your journey that are sort of the leavables? I cannot leave without this thing in my bag.
I love that question. Ooh, that's good. Hmm. I think number one would be my faith. Yeah, my faith and belief in universal love and that bigger purpose that we're all kind of here for. Um, Also, as my in my work as a nurse, I mean, I worked with people at end of life. I have walked people past, through that process, and seeing that happen with your own eyes daily in your job gives you a sense of like this is a journey we're all on. We have this beginning, middle, and like there's this finitude to it. And that can be a really scary place to start exploring of like the existential anxiety, right? But then my faith of when I'm spreading love, when I have clients who tell me this has changed my life, it fills me up in such a way that that's why I'm here. And so that deep faith that love and acceptance bring healing, and I'm growing in my own love and acceptance, and I'm helping my clients grow in their own love and acceptance, and I get it from my higher power. So I think my faith is the number one thing that I couldn't leave behind. And then positive self-talk, like inner child healing almost, which I've dabbled in. But like what you were saying, CJ, of when you're bashing yourself and you're just starting to spiral. I almost find myself going into mother mode of like, oh my gosh, you are so scared, aren't you? You're just so scared that they're going to think that you're an idiot and that you don't know what you're doing. And that's totally understandable, but like, I've got you. You're good. And like that almost self-parenting, find myself doing that a lot. I was training for a half marathon a couple weeks ago, and whenever I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this, and I'm just running, and this is so hard, and I'll find myself saying, you've got this. You know what? Take a second, walk, breathe, and then start again. Very kind, very gentle, very reassuring, um, very motherly. Yeah, so those are the two that come to mind as my primary things I would have in my backpack. And then writing. I love writing. That's my art form.
Please tell us
I
about
write
that one.
poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I write poetry. I write um my own journey. I love the process of writing. I try to use as few words as possible. Short lines, maybe even one word, and in lots of white space to get across the feeling of the piece in a way that's easy because people's attention span is like nothing these days. Mine included, right? Mine is getting better, but to to see a whole bunch of text on a screen, people are like, no. But when it's nice and spaced out and there's a flow to it. I just love writing. It's really healing for me. I've done it ever since I was a kid. Um, I love sharing my writing, and yeah, it's really a magical practice for me.
That's really cool.
Yeah, those are amazing. I mean, and yeah, as far as being that clear, even if it's getting it down to one word, I'm guessing here, but I'd imagine that's really capturing the essence of what you're looking to communicate, right? As opposed to
Mhm.
bunch of filler words and
Yeah,
modifiers and all of that. It's like, no, let's get to the truth here. Back to kind of what CJ had brought up earlier. The truth comes
right,
out in your writing.
right, right. Like faith, fear, surrender, trust.
Mm.
Those four words are like, ooh, I have a choice there. Faith, fear, surrender, trust. And like so much can be said with those four words than all this stuff that I could write about what all that
You
is.
just have your next writing here. I
Yeah.
want to see that. I want to see that posted. Those 4 words with links to what they could lead to.
Yeah, everything that could mean,
Actually,
right?
that could take away all your white space
Surrender is
because it gets
huge.
crazy. Then there goes your white space. So maybe just those. But yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Surrender is huge. I
Mm,
love that word.
mm,
Like just surrender, surrender to what wants to happen. Even if the worst thing happens, it could end up being the right thing, like that deep level of trust that everything's going to work out.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, and that's a practice in itself, right?
Yes.
have you read The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
No.
add it to your list, please, because
Yes.
I mean, you kind of captured the essence of it, but that in itself is a conscious practice of surrendering to um, the uncontrollables in life, which is a lot of things, right? And
Hmm.
we we are essentially just experiencing things, and really where it becomes difficult is when we assign so much meaning to it and stay within the drama of it, right?
Mm.
As opposed to
Mm.
kind of just sitting back, like CJ just said, right? Like, okay, I'm experiencing this thing. Whoa, not fun,
Yes.
but it's just a thing,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't have to like diagnose it or dissect it. I mean, that's where we start to suffer so much more.
Personalize it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Abby.
Yeah. Oh no, that it reminded me, I have something written right here that I learned in a coaching CEU that I took, and it's drama, situation, choice, opportunity. So when something happens, you're stuck in the drama. You're like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe that's what they said? And this is happening, and my basement flooded." That's the drama. Let yourself be there for a little bit, but then naturally we'll start to think more situation. Okay, what do I need to do? Who do I need to call? The basement is flooded. Let's get the shop vac out. We move into problem solving. A lot of us stop there. We live in drama situation, drama situation. We just kind of basketball between the two. Then, if we go to a higher level of consciousness, the next one is choice. Who do I choose to be in relation to this situation? Do I choose to be the type of person that gets completely overwhelmed by it? Do I choose some faith? Do I choose that it's going to work out? And then the fourth is opportunity. How is this all an opportunity for my self growth? Everything in life is an opportunity for us to go even further into our wholeness and into our capacity as people. Everything can be an opportunity. Even the pandemic and everything that happened to me as an ICU nurse, how hard that was. Like, it was all this opportunity for me to decide my path. What is it that I want to do? How much do I love myself? Do I love myself enough to leave? And it was all a big opportunity. And I see the world that way now. Everything's an opportunity for growth. Our whole life. Like, what even is life? What even is life? We're just like walking around in these meat suits, like talking to other people, loving our cats, going to work, to have numbers on a screen in our bank account that mean what, and like all of it's very magical and mysterious, and like everything's this opportunity to move more fully into your wholeness and into love of your higher power, of the universe, of source, whatever you want to call it. It's shedding the ego, it's stepping more and more into that. So I went a little bit of a tangent there, but
No,
it was right here, and
no.
you just said that.
You two are sitting there talking, and I'm realizing as I see this, like I see at max, give yourself 15 minutes of personalization of this problem. And then, as you said, Abby, immediately what you're talking about is removing yourself from something you've so personalized to yourself. Jordan was just talking about it. This is like my worst problem, this thing. And it goes back to this thing where even the thing that we personalize the most is love. It has to be like this for me. Love has to look like this for me. If you span out and see that it's a flowing river of people like Jordan and Abby in the ride with you, it looks way different and it's actually so much greater to enjoy. We personalize these problems. And so I'm sitting here listening to you guys having this realization of like, you spoke about your nursing incident, and I'm here sitting there, and that was like the last thing we talked about was how much life and the end of this life here you saw. That moment for you completely is different than anything I've had to experience on the regular. So to be so, that perspective takes it out for me, and I'm like, you're way too deep, bro. Too serious. Life is way too fun to be that
Yeah,
deep.
right.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I bet you brought up the 4 levels of engagement, Abby. It's funny. I was not spoiler alert, CJ, for the next men's group. I was planning on actually talking about that. So I'm so happy you told
Ooh,
me.
spoiler.
you spoiled it,
And
Abby.
well, there's just alignment, and I knew it from the day I met you, Abby. So it's just cool to yeah to hear you talk about these things
Amazing.
that mean yeah mean a lot to just the human experience. So I'm curious for you, as far as the practices that you mentioned. I thought about Dora the Explorer in your backpack. You've got your faith, you've got your belief,
Mhm.
you've got your positive self-talk. You got these non-negotiables. I'm wondering for you, if more people were doing that, Abby, how would you see that kind of changing the world? Right? Starting with your
Mm.
communities, or even starting within the home, or just your close circle of influence, right? How do you see things starting to shift for others, potentially implementing
Mm.
those practices themselves?
Yeah, I have a quote on the back of my business card that says, "Take care of your mind and you take care of the world." And I think if we all did our own work and were open and had an empathetic witness to explore our own triggers and our own ego and our blockages, and we did more of that, I think we would stop having so much competition, unhealthy competition with each other. There's healthy competition, unhealthy competition with each other. And sometimes in my mind, I see people walking around and it's like we're all still little kids who didn't get enough love or didn't get enough attention or didn't have an empathetic, emotionally mature guardian, parent to walk us through our emotions. And it's like we're stuck at this level of emotional intelligence where, you see it at work, the boss with the big ego who likes to make other people feel small, and the bully at work. Nursing has a lot of bullying where, oh, these new grads, they don't know what they're doing. Let me have that. Let me show you how it's done. That kind of stuff. It's a lot of inadequacy within, or a wound of self-love and acceptance. And I think if we were able to give that to each other and to ourselves, that deep love, we wouldn't have as much of that animosity with each other, and there would be more peace.
Hmm. Wow. Hope everyone's listening to that there. That's beautiful, Abby. And it's called for in today's world, kind of to your point there, right? And I hear a lot of people joke about, someone maybe claps back, or snaps at them. We say it oftentimes in a joking way, like, "Who hurt you?" Like, damn. Like, okay. Like, I, I'm I'm taking away from your beautiful thoughts there of like, you actually have a genuine compassionate curiosity around, like, hey, Like, where does it hurt? And that's okay. Like, I'm here to hold that with you, and let's explore it, and let's get to a point where it's, it's not, it doesn't have that hold on you anymore. So I don't know.
And
It's
and me as your coach, like, I'm not scared of it.
right.
I have capacity to go there with you. And the whole idea that you can't take your clients deeper than you've gone in yourself has been very true for me. The deeper I go into my own fears, the deeper I can go with my clients and not be afraid to go there. Because a lot of people, I think, are afraid to go there. If you're just talking to a buddy, a friend, a coworker about your depression or how sad you are, you don't feel fulfilled, they might not have capacity to know how to go there and they'll shut it down. Like, yeah, we all, that's just life, right? They make those statements and you start to feel like, does anybody see me? And to have a person who says, let's go there. What does that feel like that you don't like your job? How does that feel? How long have you been feeling that way? Like, what are your passions? Let's explore together. Someone who's got the capacity to sit in those heavier, deeper emotions with you, to get them out. It feels like I'm a nurse for the soul. I'm like, I'll hold your hand in death and I'll hold your hand in ego death. Like, let's go. I've been there. I've seen people pass on. Like, I've held that process. I think being a nurse, I'm so thankful for that experience because it gave me capacity to sit with people in their hardest moments and to just walk them through that. Yeah.
As we finish up, I just have a curiosity around what you just spoke about that vulnerability that's required to do that. Do you, as the audience that I speak for myself, but do you see a difference between the male female dynamic and who has that audience to go to, who has that community? Do you see a difference between your female clients and your male clients in that willingness to either go there or just see that they don't have a place to drop that?
Mm. I don't know that I've worked with enough male clients to answer that because a lot of my clients are women.
Uh. And that
Hmm.
maybe is a telling
Not all of
sign.
them.
That might say something right there, you know?
Hmm.
I'm so lucky to
Right.
have a guy like Jordan that I'm able to literally have these wonderful in-depth conversations with, and I'm just curious how many men out there have the ability to. I think there are a lot of men out there with depth that get cut short because they can only swim in the 3 foot pool because there's no one else to go around. Jay was out in the deep end before me. Really, we've had the same thoughts, but when it was like, all right, hey, let's swim in the 6 feet, I was right there with my bro, and I was like, I love this place. You know, I have more room to go put my whole body in this and get to experience more. So I'm curious for my men out there. Please do hear that what she's saying and perhaps find that community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do think, there's some things within the women's circle where we can stay in the drama. I've experienced that myself, where it's like you stay there and I'm reading this book right now called Maiden to Mother. And it's how women through society are kind of stuck in a way in the maidenhood of wanting to look young and pretty, wanting to be saved, and that kind of I'm the helpless maiden, and transitioning into the great mother where we have capacity for our own shit, we have capacity for your shit, we have this depth, and becoming a physical mother doesn't always transition you into being a spiritual mother. It's this spiritual journey that women go through of maiden to mother, and the last stage is crone, which is like Maggie Smith, Professor McGonagall in Harry Potter, where it's like, I don't care at all who cares what, they just have this, I don't care, but they're still so loving and powerful. And those are like the three transitions of women's lives. Um, but that is some of the work I do as well with women, is coming into the fullness of your feminine maturity as mother for yourself, for your sisters, and for the other women in your life, having that spirit to go deeper.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, well, I'm very very happy for the people that you've helped up to this point, Abby, and the people to come, because you've got a beautiful essence about you to that's yeah, that's like, I guarantee creates a very healing environment for people to step into this. So um yeah, I'm wondering, as we start to wrap up, was there anything else that you were prepared to speak about or wanted to make sure that you shared with our listeners or anything like that?
Hmm. I did want to share, I mentioned my digital detox earlier, but to bring that back up, um, we need to figure out how to balance our screen time. A lot of us, myself included, that was a big numbing thing for me, was lots of time on TikTok, social media, and especially when I launched my business and I'm on Instagram more, I'm on Facebook more, I found myself getting pulled into reels and wasting time and numbing. And I had to go through again my own process of how do I detox off of this. And I created a 6-week program called Digital Detox, where we use a blocking app and it works. You can't cheat it, you can't work around it. If you set it up the way I have you set it up, you're blocked. And it can be just at night. It can be 30 minutes in the morning, like it can be whatever you want it to be. And then we do podcast homework every week where we learn about dopamine, we learn about nervous system regulation and stress, and we learn about being versus doing. So we cover all those topics, and it's really a crash course in stress management and finding your place of being. So I do run that group. It's super fun and it's an amazing group. And the next one is starting in January. I have a morning and an evening one to accommodate different people's schedules. And you can learn about that on my website, nurseabbyllc.com.
In saying that, anywhere else they can get in touch with you? Is there anywhere else that you like place they can reach out to Abby?
Yeah, my website would be the number one, and then you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram, which is at Abby K Payne, ABBYKAYPAYNE. I am more on Facebook because I'm a writer, and they allow for longer text than Instagram. So I know it's old school, but I do write a lot more on Facebook.
Facebook is
Hey,
cool.
no judgment
Facebook is cool.
of it. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, Abby. We're so happy to have you, and uh, endless insights that you shared today. So thank you very much for bringing your full self here, and it was inspiring. I'd imagine for CJ as well, but definitely me, and for
You're
anyone that
speaking the truth, bro.
that gets to listen to this or see it.
Mm.
So thank you again.
Well, thank you for holding the space and for allowing my authenticity. And for, I'm just so glad that we got connected, Jordan, and that, your mom's a nurse and we got connected through that, which is really cool. The nursing heart brought us together and it's so aligned. I love what you guys are doing for the men. We need you guys. Like, keep doing what you're doing for the men who need that depth, that father spirit, right? It's the same thing on the other side of like, let's go play in the deep end and let's go there in ourselves and our spirits. Let's not be afraid of our own emotions. And I just love what you guys are doing, and I'm fully in support.
Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, you're welcome to come back anytime, Abby, and please let us know how we can continue to support what you're doing as well.
Thank you. You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abby.
See you next time. Thank you for joining us today on the Practicing People's podcast. We hope you found our conversation inspiring and thought-provoking. We appreciate your support and passion for personal growth and self-improvement.
To help build the Practicing People's community, please follow us on Instagram at Practicing People's Podcast for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and engaging discussions. Liking and sharing our posts will spread the word about the podcast to others who can benefit from these conversations. You can also reach out to us at our website, www.practicingpeoples.com, for more materials and ways to tap into the community.
Leaving a rating and review on your preferred podcast platform is a valuable way to support us and help potential listeners discover our show.
Remember, personal growth is a journey we embark on together. Let's build a community where we uplift and inspire one another to achieve our true potential.
Thank you for being part of the Practicing People's podcast family. And until next time, keep practicing and keep growing.